Då hälsar jag er alla välkomna till Bokmässans ombildningsscen. Min älskling är demokratin. Joachim Gauck, till helt nyligen förbundspresident i Tyskland, är luthersk präst och har gjort sig känd som medborgarrättskämpe i Östtyskland under den så kallade fredliga revolutionen. Vi ska nu få möta Joachim Gauck i ett personligt samtal med vår egen ärkebiskop Antje Jackelén. Om att växa upp och leva i ett Europa som förändras, om tro, politik, integritet och framtidshopp, om texter och människor som ombildat. Please welcome Joachim Gauck and Antje Jackelén.
It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to welcome you, Herr Altbundespräsident Joachim Gauck, here at the Gothenburg Book Fair. And let's get right into it. We've just had elections in Germany, and we expect Angela Merkel to continue as the Chancellor for another 4 years. However, the right-wing extremist populist AfD has entered into the parliament, which is sadly historic in post-World War II Germany. Your comment?
It's a new development, yes. But first of all, I want to like to switch into German. My English is a low-level one, and so because of it, it's easier for me to switch into German, and we have a translator near to me, and I hope you will accept it. Yes? Okay. Ja, ähnlich wie alle Länder um Deutschland herum gibt es jetzt auch im deutschen Parlament eine Rechtsaußenfraktion.
Yes, indeed, as in all neighboring countries of Germany, there's a right-wing extremist group even now entering parliament.
Es ist keine Partei, die sich nationalsozialistisch geriert und thematisch aufstellt, aber es sind viele Menschen in dieser Partei, die ziemlich affin sind für Rechtsradikale, also eine Mischung aus traditionell konservativem Bürgertum mit Ängsten gegen Flüchtlinge, gegen Islam und Leute, die eine gewisse Nähe haben zum reaktionären Nazi-Gedankentum.
Indeed, this political party does not see itself as a Nazi party, but in it there is a quite large group of people who are ultra-conservative, who are very right-wing, and who are very skeptical about issues like immigration. Yes, indeed, there are people inside the party that have sympathy for extreme right-wing views.
Die Prozentzahl bei der Wahl ist ähnlich wie hier bei den Schwedendemokraten, 12,6%.
The percentage, the outcome of the election, that's quite similar to the Sverigedemokraterna. It's 12.6%.
Und das Interessante ist jetzt, dass die Zahl der Wähler in Ostdeutschland, der ehemaligen DDR, doppelt so hoch ist wie im Westen Deutschlands.
And if we look at the electorate, we can clearly see that the number of voters in eastern Germany is double the size compared to the number of voters in western parts of Germany.
Das heißt, im ehemals sozialistischen Teil gibt es mehr altdeutsche und reaktionäre Einstellungen, auch fremdenfeindliche Einstellungen, die von Angst geprägt sind, als in dem Teil Deutschland, in dem seit dem Krieg die Demokratie über Generationen aufgebaut worden ist.
So what we see here is that in the eastern part of Germany, with a socialistic tradition, there's a quite significant electorate which has sympathies for extreme right-wing groups compared to Western Germany, which has a democratic tradition. And this is something which has something to do with fear, and I think it's quite worth mentioning.
Also man kann es, wenn ich es jetzt kurz fassen soll, dann sehen wir, dass eine Gesellschaft, die über Generationen Eigenverantwortung gelernt hat, Autonomie des Bürgers, Freiheit als Freiheit zu etwas gelernt hat, die in Meinungsfreiheit gelebt hat und eine aktive Bürgergesellschaft geschaffen hat, ist etwas weiter in der Abwehr von Ressentiment und Fremdenfeindlichkeit. Man kann es nicht völlig ausschließen, aber es zeigt sich eben doch, dass eine längere demokratische Entwicklung Mentalitäten prägt.
Okay. What we can clearly see is that a society which has lived with democratic traditions, like in the western part of Germany, that's such a society where people have learned responsibility, taking part in the political life, that this society is more immune, seems to be more immune to the right-wing extremist views that this new party has.
So a conclusion would be that building democracy takes resources, takes time. But there's also research showing that people who have a sort of religious affiliation are actually more tolerant than people who don't. So would you see there is a slight connection between, because in former GDR there are less immigrants and there is more hostility against immigrants, and the other way around in the western part. Is there a connection to this massive atheist propaganda?
Yeah, I think so. It's a problem with these people. Without foreigners, against foreigners, without Jewish people, anti-Semitic. And I think often, and because of it, it's helpful to look at the East ohne einen inneren Kern, ohne eine gute Werteausstattung, wie sie eben im Menschen wächst, die im Glauben stehen oder die ein humanistisches Wertekonzept haben. Und in einer praktisch so wertfreien, sie waren weder Kommunisten noch Christen, sie waren irgendwie Normalbürger und Konsumenten, aber es fehlt eine innere Sicherheit, eine eigene gute Ich-Stärke und Identität. Und dann kommt die Angst besonders stark.
I think what we can clearly see is that people, like in East Germany, where there's an inner core lacking, where they don't have an inner core based on a Christian faith, for example, on values and norms, that people without such a stability, without such an inner core, they have problems adopting, and they are more prone to accepting these right-wing extremist views.
You have so beautifully said that democracy is your darling. I quite like that expression, but I also want to ask you, how strong is your darling?
No, it's strong enough to fight against the enemies of the open society. And but my hope and my longing has deeper roots than from different other people in the free Western world. 50 years long, I left under dictatorship and far away from freedom. And in situations like that, you create in yourself a deep longing and a deep hope to create a better society and to do more for human rights and justice and so on and so on. And because of that, different people from the former East are very strong to fight for human rights, for responsibility, and very active people like our Chancellor Angela Merkel and different other leaders in Middle East Europe. But another part needs more time to change their mentality from a former subject under oppression to be and to learn what it means to be a citizen in freedom. And freedom for me means more freedom too. Freedom for it was, for anything to fight for, not only free from. That is a big difference, very important for our society.
You have said.
Pardon.
You have said that democracy is under attack.
Yeah.
What do you think about attacks on democracies? Democracy in these days, and what should we do to strengthen democracy?
It's more important to look at the developed societies than to the others in times of transition. If you look at Sweden, at whole Scandinavia, at the Netherlands and Germany, we should wonder about the success of the right-wing parties and movements. It's not so besonders so special in the societies of transition, but especially here, or look at the United States with the election for Trump, we feel that in our developed society, there's one part of society able to debate, able to find ways to articulate their attempts and all what they have to do. And another part is only offside of the debating part of society. They are consumers and so on, well, consumers. And, but often our enlightened class of politicians and cultural people are not able to find them out, to meet them with words. And we need another language to come nearer to this part of society who are voters for Trump and voters for the right-wing parties. And so perhaps, Archbishop, we have to learn all together a new kind of speech in a more simple way, a good way to have simple words, erhellende Vereinfachung, I call it in German.
Enlightening simplification.
Yeah, and it is dangerous, but we come nearer with our language than to the populist one. But we cannot allow only the populists to come nearer with their language to the people outside of the acting and debating part of society.
Could we translate it into we should not focus primarily on talking to the Sweden Democrats, but to the voters of the Sweden Democrats?
Yeah.
And try to find this, that's beautiful, enlightening simplification.
Yeah, I think among them, I go back to Germany, among this new party AfD, we have real enemies of our open society and of democracy. But I'm not sure that it would be the majority of them. Many of them are educated people, are middle-class people, and Angela Merkel's party is not conservative enough for those part of voters. And she has said, and I feel so, it is possible to bring back these protest voters to the more democratic parties like CDU here or Moderaterna here or what you have here. I'm not so sure. But it is helpful not to come too early into fear against these enemies. They will never have the majority in our part of Europe. Never, never more. We all, the whole floor of our parliaments, stand against them. We have good traditions here in Sweden with this wonderful tradition of social state of Folkehem, in this wonderful area of rule of law, of solidarity, of human rights activists. Why we should have fear against them, this minority? But we have to go nearer to them with a robust debate, not to feel too much fear against some words of them, to stay and to be in front of them and to confront them and to ask them ever and ever, what is your next argument? For example, some people in Germany, they feel fear against the development for the pensioners, die Renten, pensions, yes? And this party has no one word for their agenda to create a system of better pensions for the elder. But many of the elder conservative are voters of them. And so I can imagine that our normal parties will confront them in the parliament and in the public to push them, give us arguments, not only a sentence.
Since we have a very strong culture of consensus in this country, I think that also means that we need to put more effort into developing a healthy culture of disagreement, of debate and struggle against each other.
Yeah.
And this brings me to the next real question. We are both Lutheran pastors.
I was.
You-
I'm now a lay person since I work together with the government, but in a peaceful way. It was
Yeah. And I guess the pastoral heart is never taken out of a
Okay.
person. When it goes in, it goes never out.
Okay.
But the relationship between faith, religion, and political engagement, especially since your key idea is so strongly freedom, is there a connection between what faith tells you and how that translates into political action?
Yeah, I think my near to my faith is born in times of dictatorship. My father was imprisoned without any reason from the Soviets. They brought him to Siberia. I was an 11 years old boy, and he survived. He came back. But I learned early I live in bad times and a bad system. They called it a new system, better for the people, for the working class, but the daily life was hard, and it was against the people. And so I looked out for what can me help, was kann mich nähren, was gibt meiner Seele Kraft in schlechten Zeiten zu überstehen. Und so wurde der Glaube in mir eine innere Gegenwelt zur äußeren Repression.
So I asked myself, what is there for me to learn? What is the ground for me to stand on? So I looked at faith as an area that could teach me, that could make me learn and develop.
Und innerhalb der Kirche fand ich dann in den Jugendgruppen der Kirche Menschen, für die nicht die Kommunisten oder Stalin oder Honecker, was weiß ich noch, wer alles regierte, so die höchste Stelle hatte, sondern das war Gott. Wir hatten so ein natürliches System der Relativierung der weltlichen Macht in uns durch den Glauben.
So when I met other people within the church, within the youth groups, I mean, they looked at another authority. They did not take the Socialist Party or the Communists or Honecker or anyone else as an authority, but they looked to a greater authority. They looked to God, and they looked to God as guidance. And that was a different and an alternative world that very much appealed to me.
Und in der Botschaft der Nächstenliebe und der Gerechtigkeit und der Gleichheit aller Menschen aus der Heiligen Schrift haben wir dann die Kraft genommen, nicht nur auf unser weltliches Fortkommen zu setzen, sondern so etwas wie ein Gegenkonzept zu leben, eine andere Kultur in uns, eine Gegenkultur. Und darum meine ich, dass wer einen Kern in sich hat, wessen Seele gestützt ist auf ein Wertesystem, das stärker ist als die gerade politische Macht haben, dass der eine Chance hat, zu überleben und vielleicht sogar das System zu überwinden, aber dazu später mehr.
And when we read the Bible, when we read the Holy Scripture, we looked for guidance, we looked for an authority, we looked for values, we looked for means that would make us survive in the society that we live. And we looked for a wider context, we looked for another authority, and we looked for a that gave us a very stable ground to stand on.
Und das klingt jetzt sehr individuell, das war es auch. Jetzt komme ich mal auf das Jahr 1989, die friedliche Revolution.
And now this looks very individualistic, and in a way I agree it is. But let me now say a few words about the peaceful revolution of 1989.
Und es ist sehr auffallend, dass bei uns in der DDR die ganzen Zentren der Gegenbewegung eigentlich aus Kirchgemeinden bestanden oder jedenfalls engagierten Christen oder Personen, die mit engagierten Christen in Kontakt waren. Natürlich gab es auch ein paar Künstler, aber überall waren es die Kirchen und die Gemeinden, die im Grunde den Motor der Demokratie und des Protestes. Hier war mehr Hoffnung und aus der Hoffnung kam mehr Mut und mehr Fähigkeit, die Angst zu überwinden.
And when we look at East Germany, I mean, the resistance that built up, that came from church group, that came from parishes. Fair enough, there were a number of artists that got involved. But within the church, there were the people who were actually the drivers, the engine of resistance and the engines of a democratic development.
I quite like the thought that the difference faith makes is that you get this good relativization of the worldly powers and obviously the energy to work for change. What is it that makes Christian hope a power? What is it that I think that's especially in these days when we ask ourselves how much intolerance are we going to tolerate and how are we going to nurture democracy, what can we really hope for?
Yeah.
What's
first of all, it's not in every situation dangerous to have people with a non-correct opinion. We need a little bit, wir brauchen ein bisschen Geduld auch gegenüber Spinnern und auch gegenüber manchem schrägen Argument. Wir müssen nicht gleich in Ohnmacht fallen, wenn die nicht unsere Reinheit der politisch korrekten Argumentation haben.
I mean, what I would really appeal to, or what I would like to stress, is that we need patience. We need patience to confront these nutters. We need patience to confront idiotic ideas when they are presented to us. Let us be clear about it. Don't let's get excited about it. Let patience rule.
Wir dürfen niemals dabei so weit gehen, einen Feind nicht als Feind zu erkennen. Es gibt Feinde der offenen Gesellschaft. Okay. Es gibt Menschenfeinde. Okay. Und denen müssen wir ein hartes Stopp sagen.
Okay. Of course, we must never shrink from calling an enemy, because there are enemies to humanity. And we must never back down on them. We must never back down. We have to tell them clearly that that is a red line that they are going to cross, and we must call a spade a spade.
And for short, to finish, one word about hope. It starts slow and soft as a kind of longing. I want to see better times. I want to create myself as a better man, and from this longing comes the attitude of hope. And the hope is nearer to activity than only the longing. And from our hope, from our deeper hope of a better time, of God's love, and our attitudes to be a man against other men, though we can start to be a more active member of society. And I think without hope, why you should go into the middle of society to fight for this or for that. And so it is very important that all the preachers, that the church people, that artists, authors and so on, the teachers are also helpful to create in the people the attitude of hope as eine Vorstufe zur Aktivität und zum Engagement.
I see that it's a step on the ladder to success and to hope.
On that hopeful note,
and to engagement,
with an appeal to us all, go out there and cultivate hope. I want to thank you, Bundespräsident Gauck, for being with us and sharing your wisdom with us this hours.
Thank you, Archbishop.